As you listen, you relax. As you listen, you drift into sleep's magical world. I'm your Sleep Nomad, and tonight I'm taking you on an unforgettable spring dream through Japan. In this special episode, we'll discover the secrets beneath Shizuka village's cherry blossoms, the call of the water spirit Mizuko, and wishes sent to the stars with paper lanterns, accompanied by the melancholic notes of Koto, the babble of streams, and wind chimes carried by the breeze. Now settle deeper into your bed. Let your breath become light as a paper lantern. Each story will bring you closer to calm, closer to the land of dreams. Let's step into Shizuka village's magic. Nestled deep within the emerald folds of a remote valley, Shizuka village slumbered under a blanket of dawn mist. The villagers often said the mountains protected them, not only from harsh winds and wandering beasts, but also from the noisy rush of the outside world. Here, time moves slower, more deliberately, and on this morning, the first of spring, time almost seemed to stop. Cherry blossom trees lined the narrow paths, their limbs heavy with pink petals that glistened from the morning dew. A soft breeze stirred, rustling the branches so the petals floated gently to the ground like delicate snowflakes. They danced in the air, catching the light as though touched by magic. The wind carried with it the scent of fresh blossoms, warm earth, and the faint, nostalgic trace of incense burned during long-forgotten ceremonies. In a modest house near the village square, an old man stirred. Haruki, the last living master of the Koto, a traditional Japanese string instrument, opened his eyes to the soft glow of sunlight filtering through paper windows. Slowly, with the grace of someone who had performed this morning ritual 1,000 times before, he slid open the door to the outside. The breeze greeted him like an old companion. It whispered against his weathered face, tousling his silver hair and drawing a small, contented sigh from his lips. He walked to the veranda and sat in front of his beloved Koto, resting atop a tatami mat that had aged with him. The instrument had been passed down for generations, carved from sacred wood, its strings once made from the silk of the imperial looms. Legends said the Koto song could stir the spirits of nature, even awaken memories of those long gone. But Haruki never played for legend. He played to remember. As his fingers brushed the strings, the first note rang out, clear and resonant, like a drop of water falling into stillness. The sound echoed softly through the streets of Shizuka. Birds stopped singing. The breeze calmed. Somewhere in the distance, a bamboo wind chime gave a single soft ding, and then fell silent. Children playing near the old shrine paused mid-laughter. Little Aiko, her short black hair tied with a red ribbon, tugged gently at her grandmother's sleeve. "Obasan, where's that sound coming from?" The old woman knelt beside her, smiling. "That is Haruki-san's Koto," she whispered. "It's not just music, it's the voice of the village, a melody carried by the wind." Aiko's eyes widened. "Can music fly?" Her grandmother chuckled. "When played with love, yes. Sometimes it even makes the world listen." Up the hill, by a stream that curved like a silver ribbon through the woods, Elder Satsuki stood frozen in awe. She had been coming to this spot every morning for over 60 years, leaning on her cane to watch the water flow. But today, something was different. The surface of the stream shimmered with a subtle pink hue, mirroring the cherry blossoms. But as she looked closer, she realized it wasn't reflection. The water itself had changed. It pulsed with gentle color, shifting with the rhythm of Haruki's melody. Her heart skipped a beat. The legend. Could it be real? Long ago, it was said that when the true Koto spirit awakened, the season itself would listen, and the border between the visible and the unseen would grow thin. Blossoms would bloom in a single breath. Rivers would shift hue. The veil between the living and the spirits would stir. And here, in this moment, with Haruki's fingers dancing across silk strings, that border felt paper thin. Satsuki lowered herself slowly to the grass, her cane resting beside her, and closed her eyes. She let the music wash over her. In it, she heard not just notes, but memories. Laughter, tears, stories from generations past. As the song continued, the village did not merely awaken to spring. It awakened to something deeper, something ancient, something magical. The sound of Haruki's koto echoed like a heartbeat through the village, and Shizuka began to stir in ways no one had felt in generations. The first notes had summoned silence. Now, the music invited movement. The strings sang with greater urgency, each stroke a question, each vibration a breath held in anticipation. Near the center of the village, a small stone bridge arched over a shallow stream. Usually calm and clear, the water now shimmered with unearthly hues. The gentle pink glow from earlier had deepened into shades of lavender and soft blue, twisting and blending like ink dropped in water. Something ancient was awakening beneath the surface. Word spread quickly. One by one, villagers made their way to the bridge, whispering among themselves as if afraid to disturb the air. Children ran ahead, their laughter subdued by the strange glow. Farmers paused mid-task, wiping their hands on worn cloths and squinting toward the sound of music. Even merchants left their stalls unattended. No one could ignore what was happening. Haruki remained seated on his veranda, unaware of the crowd he was gathering. Or perhaps not unaware, but unconcerned. His eyes were closed, his hands a blur across the koto strings. Each note seemed pulled from another world. Among the first to arrive at the bridge was elder Satsuki, supported by her cane and the steady arm of her grandson. Her sharp eyes narrowed as she watched the water. Something stirred beneath the surface, a glimmer, a ripple that did not belong to the wind. She whispered, almost to herself, the old stories. They spoke of this. The villagers leaned in. Mizuko, Satsuki continued, her voice just loud enough to carry. The water spirit. She only appears during the first full moon of spring, and only answers the koto's call. As if summoned by her words, a soft chime rang out, clear and ethereal, coming from somewhere beneath the bridge. The villagers gasped. The children clutched their parents' sleeves. Even the elders, usually so grounded and rational, felt their breath catch. From the depths of the shimmering stream, a silhouette began to form. Long hair flowed like kelp in the current, and slender arms moved gracefully as if weaving spells through water. The figure rose slowly, and soon, Mizuko's face emerged into view, glowing softly, as if lit by the reflection of a full moon not yet in the sky. Her eyes were large and ancient, sad and wise. As she surfaced, her delicate hand reached upward, touching the water's topmost layer with reverence. With every touch, rings of light rippled outward, expanding toward the riverbanks. It was as though time itself had paused to watch her. From among the crowd, Takeshi, the young village priest, stepped forward. His voice trembled with awe. "She's giving us a message." Mizuko pressed her right hand to her heart, then pointed downward to the depths of the stream. The meaning was not spoken, but felt. Satsuki's voice trembled as she interpreted, "The time for wishes has come. We must remember the old traditions, the ceremony of the lanterns, the words of the water, all of it." Haruki's music swelled, no longer quiet and reflective, but vibrant and powerful. It danced like fireflies at dusk, and Mizuko began to spin. Her body twirled atop the water as if guided by invisible strings. With each turn, the surface of the stream shimmered, and the cherry blossom petals floating there turned to gold. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Children pressed closer. Little Aiko, still holding her grandmother's hand, looked up, her voice no more than a breath. "Obasan, should I be afraid?" The old woman squeezed her hand gently. "No, my dear. This is a blessing. The spirits have not forgotten us. And now, they are listening." Mizuko's dance grew faster, her arms raised, her hair trailing behind her like a comet's tail. The golden petals began to drift downstream, glowing softly in the morning light. One landed at Takeshi's feet, and he knelt to pick it up. It disintegrated in his hands like ash, leaving only warmth and the faint scent of jasmine. Then, just as suddenly as she had arrived, Mizuko stopped. She met Haruki's gaze across the square, his eyes now open, watching with a serene calm. She gave the slightest nod, and then she dove. With a final swirl, her form disappeared beneath the surface. The water settled, the golden glow faded, the blossoms lost their shimmer and became once again just petals floating on a stream. A heavy silence followed, as if the village itself were holding its breath. Then murmurs began to rise. The villagers looked to one another, their faces reflecting wonder, confusion, and reverence. Elder Satsuki tapped her cane twice on the stone bridge. The sound snapped the crowd back into the moment. "Prepare yourselves," she declared, her voice strong. "Tonight we light the paper lanterns. Tonight we speak our wishes aloud." All across Shizuka village, hearts stirred. For the first time in many years, the people believed the legends might be true. And as the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting warm light across petals, rooftops, and rippling waters, one thing was clear. The spirit of the season had awakened. Evening descended upon Shizuka village like a gentle sigh from the heavens. The fading light painted the sky in hues of violet, rose, and gold, bathing rooftops and cherry trees in a quiet glow. The air was cool and still, filled only with the rustling of blossoms and the distant, delicate hum of Haruki's Koto, still singing its ancient tune from the veranda. The village was transformed. Villagers moved silently toward the stream, cradling washy paper lanterns in their hands, delicate orbs of handmade light, each containing a small flickering candle and a carefully written wish. Children held them close to their chests like treasures. The elders, with trembling hands, handled theirs with reverence, as though the paper might crumble beneath the weight of memory. The stream, which earlier shimmered with spiritual presence, now flowed slowly and patiently, as if waiting for something sacred to begin. Satsuki, dressed in ceremonial robes of indigo and white, stood at the water's edge. In one hand, she held a small bell made of silver and bone, passed down through generations of temple guardians. In the other, a lantern of her own, its parchment worn but still whole. She rang the sacred bell 3 times. The sound cut through the air like a prayer, each note soft yet resonant, drawing everyone's attention inward. "Hear Mizuko's call," she announced, her voice calm and full of knowing. "Tonight, our hearts speak across the veil. Let your wishes be true, and let them be kind. Only then will the spirit answer." One by one, the villagers stepped forward. There were no formal lines, no commands, only instinct and reverence. Little Aiko stood with her grandmother beneath the lantern-lit trees. The girl's hands trembled as she held a brush, preparing to write her wish on the paper surface. Her grandmother leaned down, guiding her small fingers. "What would you like to wish for, Aiko-chan?" she whispered. The girl thought for a long moment, then with soft strokes wrote, "I want to see Grandma again." The old woman froze, her breath catching in her throat. She blinked rapidly, fighting the sting behind her eyes. The child didn't know, not fully. She didn't remember her mother's mother, the one whose spirit had watched over them in silence for so many years. But something within her remembered nonetheless. Satsuki stepped forward and gently placed her lantern on the stream's surface. The candle inside flickered, caught a breeze, and steadied. "I wish," she whispered, "to see my first love once more." The lantern began its journey, floating gently downstream, casting soft light upon the rippling water. Behind her, Takeshi, the young priest, released his own. "I want to remember my father's smile," he said, voice barely audible above the rustle of leaves. The stream began to glow. One by one, the villagers added their wishes. Mothers, farmers, children, bakers, elders. Wishes for healing, for forgiveness, for one last conversation, for peace. As the stream carried them onward, something began to stir. A wordless song drifted through the night, not sung by a voice, but felt in the soul. It came from the breeze, the blossoms, the stars. It was Mizuko's lullaby, the same one mothers once sang to their newborns in the old days, carried now by the air itself. And then it happened. When Aiko's lantern touched the water, its flame grew brighter, not just a little, but blindingly so. A trail of golden light burst from it like a comet's tail, dancing across the surface. The villagers gasped. "Look," someone cried. "Her lantern, it's different." Indeed, the flame left a golden path in the water, and the other lanterns, dozens of them, began to respond, glowing more vibrantly, forming a luminous river that illuminated the entire stream. The air smelled of jasmine and pine, and the feeling in the air shifted, like being embraced by a memory. Satsuki wept openly. She clutched her hands together and whispered to no one in particular. "Tonight, the veil between us and those we've lost grows thin." Haruki's music softened. The tempo slowed, each note now an invitation. The sound seemed to come from inside the hearts of those listening, a shared memory made manifest. Then a hush fell. Aiko's lantern, the smallest of all, had suddenly stopped midstream. It hovered in place, its flame flickering like a heartbeat. The child stared at it, wide-eyed. Its light intensified once more, this time not in brightness, but in warmth. Then slowly, tenderly, the flame dimmed, as if bowing to something unseen, and the lantern began to sink. The paper did not burn, nor dissolve. It simply drifted downward into the depths, as if being pulled lovingly by unseen hands. Aiko gasped and held her grandmother's hand tightly. "Grandma is coming," she whispered, not in fear, but in joy. The villagers stood in silence. For a moment, no one moved, no one breathed. Then, gently, a single cherry blossom drifted down from the sky and landed on the stream, glowing gold. As Haruki's fingers glided across the final notes of his century-old koto, the melody soared like a crane rising from still waters. The music was neither loud nor forceful, yet it stirred the air itself, drawing breath from every soul who heard it. The villagers stood in silence, eyes wide yet heavy with emotion. And then, something unspoken passed between them. A gentle warmth, a tug in the chest. An invisible hand seemed to reach out, soft and patient, guiding them to close their eyes. One by one, they did. They didn't fall asleep in the usual sense. There were no dreams of confusion or darkness. Instead, they awoke into something else. Aiko stood in a forest shrouded in rose-tinted mist, her feet bare upon soft, mossy earth that glowed faintly with golden flecks. The trees above her stretched impossibly tall, their blossoms shimmering like hanging stars. The air carried a scent both foreign and familiar. Cherry blossoms, rain, and something like the pages of old books. She turned slowly. "Where am I?" she asked aloud. A breeze whispered, "Haru no Yume." The land of spring dreams. From the mist stepped a woman dressed in a white silk kimono, embroidered with golden threads that swayed like water. Her long black hair flowed behind her like ink in still water, and her face was serene yet filled with quiet emotion. She sat beside a golden koto, her fingers dancing upon its luminous strings. Each note she played stirred the petals around them into swirling patterns. "I am Mizuko," she said with a gentle smile. "I heard your wishes, little one." Aiko opened her mouth to speak, but a voice, beloved and unmistakable, came from behind her. "Sweetheart, I'm here." The girl turned, heart pounding. There, beneath a canopy of glowing blossoms, stood her grandmother, alive, whole, smiling with the same familiar warmth that had once tucked her into bed, wiped away tears, and told stories by candlelight. The wrinkles she remembered were softened, her eyes clearer, but she was unmistakably herself. Aiko ran to her, sobbing, clinging to her with small arms. "I missed you so much." "I never left," her grandmother whispered, kissing her hair. "I'm with you always, in dreams, in memories, in music all around them." Others wandered the dream realm. Satsuki danced hand in hand in a meadow with a man whose face had long faded from her waking thoughts, but whose smile now reawakened long-buried laughter. Takeshi sat beneath a cherry tree, a shogi board between him and a man who looked just like him, only older. "You always led with the bishop," his father teased. "That was your mistake." The priest laughed. "I still do." Time in this place did not flow like the waking world. It breathed, it lingered. Each moment felt eternal, yet as fleeting as a single falling blossom. Mizuko continued to play, her golden koto now weaving a melody more delicate than before. It shimmered through the mist, curling through trees, across fields, and into the hearts of the villagers. "Do you hear it?" she asked Aiko. The girl nodded, tears sparkling in her eyes. It's the lullaby," she whispered. "The one Grandma used to sing before bed." The music carried memory, not just sound, but feeling. Warm blankets, safe arms, the soft murmur of stories, the smell of candle wax and sleep. "This," Mizuko said, "is the music of memories. It plays only in this realm, where longing and love meet." Aiko looked up at her grandmother. "Can I stay here, forever?" Her grandmother smiled, brushing hair from the girl's brow. "If you stayed forever," she said softly, "you'd miss all the dreams still to come. And I'd miss watching you grow. You must go back, but know this door opens every spring when the blossoms return and the music plays again." The mist began to thicken, curling now with greater intent. The petals no longer swirled. They floated downward like soft snow, signaling a quiet ending. Mizuko's koto slowed. Her final note rang out like a bell in the stillness. "Say goodbye for now," she said gently. Aiko clung once more to her grandmother. "Will I see you again? In every dream, in every song, in every bloom," she whispered. She bent down and kissed Aiko's forehead. "Now go, sweetheart. Wake and remember." A golden glow surrounded the villagers. And then, morning. The sun had barely risen over the horizon, but its light spilled gently over the rooftops, the trees, and the quiet stream. Cherry blossom petals still floated across the water, but now they shimmered faintly, as if some trace of the dream still lingered. One by one, the villagers stirred, where they had rested along the banks of the stream. They sat up slowly, their expressions softened, peaceful, changed. Aiko blinked against the morning light, her fingers still warm. She looked around, searching. No one spoke. They didn't need to. They all knew what had happened. And deep in her chest, Aiko felt it, like the memory of a song just sung. Her grandmother was with her, always. Morning arrived gently in Shizuka village, blanketing the land in soft golden light. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the cherry blossom trees, casting delicate shadows on stone paths still damp with morning dew. Birds chirped faintly, as if not wanting to disturb the fragile peace that had settled over the village. Haruki stood by the stream, his koto now silent in its wooden case. He watched as a single cherry blossom petal floated gently across the surface of the water. The petal spun slowly, lazily, and as it drifted closer, he saw it was inscribed with one simple word: "Arigato." Thank you. It was Mizuko's farewell, unspoken, but deeply felt. One by one, the villagers stirred from their places near the stream. No one spoke at first. There were no words needed. Something sacred had occurred during the night, something beyond explanation. Their faces were calm, their hearts lighter. Little Aiko ran up to Satsuki and hugged her tightly. "I saw Grandma," she whispered. She was smiling. Satsuki knelt and held her close. "I know," she replied, with a gentle smile. "We were all given a gift last night." Children began to play once more along the paths, laughter echoing faintly between the houses. Elders sat beneath blooming trees, sipping warm tea and watching the petals fall like soft rain. Life had returned, but changed somehow. Deeper, more connected. Haruki turned to look at the mountains beyond. "One day," he said softly, "when the wind carries my song once more, we will meet again, Mizuko. Now, dear listener, it is your turn. Close your eyes. Let the peace of Shizuka guide you. Perhaps, if your heart is open, a cherry blossom will brush your cheek. Perhaps you too will walk among dreams. Breathe deeply. Let go. Drift gently. Oyasumi nasai. Good night."